Welcome to the WRB Ministries YouTube channel. Today I'd like to talk about the fraudulent war on drugs. From the fraudulent war on terror, to the fraudulent war on drugs, to the fraudulent war on illiteracy, American citizens have been woefully deceived and lied to by our untrusted leaders. It has been proven that any time the U.S. government declares a war on anything, the problem only gets much worse. Who's kidding who? While the U.S. federal government has been waging a phony and hypocritical war on drugs as an easy way to increase repression in inner cities and confiscate millions of dollars in private assets through unconstitutional forfeiture laws in order to fund its burgeoning police state, it has also been an active participant in the illegal drug trade, using public resources to bring heroin and cocaine into American inner cities at least since the 1960s. Sound like paranoia? In fact, this information has been confirmed by scholars and researchers throughout the past 3 decades. Any honest scholar that has researched the issue will tell you that this is the truth, but you will find very little information about it in the mainstream mass media. One scandal you must remember involved the Central Intelligence Agency selling crack cocaine in South Central Los Angeles in order to fund the U.S. covert war against the people of Nicaragua. While the CIA's heavy involvement in the drug trade, and especially the crack cocaine trade, has been well documented by scholars such as Dr. Peter Dale Scott at least since the Iran-Contra hearings in the 1980s, the mass media are only now beginning to take notice. And even when they do take notice, most of the sheep-like journalists and anchor people continue to parrot the absurd government line in contradiction to the blatant facts, which are available to anyone who reads beyond the corporate summaries of government press releases. Ron Paul blasts the war on drugs. 7 million Americans are presently behind bars, half of those are for minor drug offenses. Mother with 1/16 ounces cocaine gets life in prison. The enemy is coming in like a flood. Isaiah 59:19. America run by criminal syndicate. It's the 11th hour, the 59th minute and the 59th second of America's freedom. Stand now or lose the country. The government has no business telling U.S. citizens what we can consume. The government brings in the illegal drugs to America, and then pays addicted mothers to be sterilized. Groups like Project Prevention hide behind extreme cases to justify sterilization as the norm, most of whom are African American. So at a weak time in their life, when they are battling drug addiction, the best solution society can come up with is to first make sure you never have any children again. You're finished in the game of motherhood. And yet, illegal drugs continue to flood into America, while government CIA planes loaded to the ceiling with 4 tons of cocaine crash while coming into the United States. God sees this blatant evil and hell will be hot enough. Presidential candidate Ron Paul said, "If we stuck to the Constitution as written, we would have no federal meddling in our schools, no Federal Reserve, no U.S. membership in the UN, no gun control, and no foreign aid. We would have no welfare for big corporations, or the poor. No American troops in 100 foreign countries. No NAFTA, GATT, or Fast Track. No arrogant federal judges usurping states' rights. No attacks on private property. And no income tax. We can get rid of most of the cabinet departments, most of the agencies, and most of the budget. The government would be small, frugal, and limited. Government's sole purpose is to protect our person, property, and freedoms. That's it." According to retired FBI agent Gary Aldrich, in his book, Unlimited Access, an FBI agent inside the Clinton White House, page 105 and 106, when First Lady Hillary Clinton was in charge of the White House Christmas tree, her idea of festive ornaments included crack pipes, condoms and various sex toys. Every time the federal government declares a war on something, the problem becomes much worse. The war on education has failed. Teens coming out of public schools are dumber today than ever before in U.S. history. The war on terror is a big fraud, intended to scare U.S. citizens into submission to increasing tyranny and oppression. The war on obesity is not working. Our foods are served in gigantic proportions, loaded down with fructose corn syrup, which causes obesity. If you vote Democrat or Republican, you are part of the problem. We need a new government or America will face certain financial, economic and moral doom. Wall Street is Washington, D.C. and Washington, D.C. is Wall Street. All recent U.S. presidents have appointed dozens of Wall Street insiders to work in head positions of government. Please watch the free 1-hour 53-minute online video, The Obama Deception, to learn the frightening truth. I am not a revolutionist, but rather, a restitutionalist. I believe that we ought to restore the U.S. Constitution and get back to small government. That is what Texas Congressman Ron Paul stands for, and I stand behind him 100% on that issue. The globalists know that the average American is ignorant, cowardly, and naive. The CIA are trafficking the illegal drugs into the United States. The evidence is solid, overwhelming, and irrefutable. If you love thy neighbor as thyself as God commanded in the Bible, then you should care. Americans are being sentenced to life in prison for a minor possession, being forced to work as slaves making license plates to help bring down real wages, just like all the illegal immigrants flooding into the U.S. are bringing down real wages, while Wall Street bankers working through the fraudulent Federal Reserve System have stolen $23.7 billion just in 2009 and 2010. It is evil beyond description. America is in big trouble. You can rest assured God is very angry. Judgment Day is coming. Hebrews 9:27. The drug war is rigged. The stock market is rigged. The war on terror is rigged. The housing market is rigged. The medical industry is rigged. The music industry is rigged. Even the religious community has been rigged to serve the almighty state. It's all a big stinking market of slavery. America has become the land of the cowards and the home of the slaves. The merger of state and corporate powers is called fascism. This is not socialism in America today. It is communist tyranny and Nazi fascism. Countless police have been caught on video planting drugs on innocent people. The victims have their homes confiscated and lose everything, going to prison. It's a gangster mafia, ladies and gentlemen, all operated and owned by offshore banks, rightfully called banksters by author William Guycar. This scam has been going on for a century. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was the most hideous evil to ever overtake the U.S. government, plunging America into the Great Depression and the bankruptcy of the U.S. government in 1933. Today in the U.S. we are in debt for trillions of dollars to the privately owned Federal Reserve criminal gang who are shamelessly stealing everything we own. In Mexico, politicians and lawmakers have been murdered for trying to shut down the illegal drug cartel. It's now happening in America. This is all a raw exercise of tyranny and abuse of power. Fox News even reported in May of 2010 that the U.S. has no choice but to grow poppy heroin in Afghanistan or else the terrorists will do it instead. What a bunch of lying propaganda. The mainstream news media are a bunch of paid liars, media whores, who have sold their souls to Satan for filthy lucre. Hell hath enlarged herself, Isaiah 5:14. Evil people like the mainstream news media don't care. They lie to please their network bosses. They don't care about suffering people. All that matters is their multi-million-dollar salaries. They're all going to hell. If you're a Christian who is loyal to the Republican Party, you had better get down on your knees and beg God to open your eyes to the blatant wickedness that exists within both parties. The left/right paradigm is a big scam intended to divide and conquer the American people. The same politicians who seem to devour one another in the news media, golf and vacation together in reality. It's all a big fake show intended to deceive the public. Tragically, most people are sold out to either the Democrat or Republican parties, but there's not a dime's difference between the globalist agendas of both parties. The globalist agendas of the occult-inspired elite are all aimed at achieving a new world order, that is the beast system of the coming Antichrist. The CIA is bringing illegal drugs into America to sell on our streets. Our children are dying and our neighborhoods are suffering. Every U.S. president since John F. Kennedy have been puppets of the globalist elite, the scumbags behind the New World Order. You don't get to be president of the United States unless you can keep your mouth shut and play the game. Reagan's alleged would-be assassin shot him with a .22 caliber. Obviously no one wanted him killed. The malicious attack was meant to scare him to submit. I believe the same thing happened when George W. Bush had a beat-up face, claiming he fell while choking on a pretzel. Right? And I'm Buck Rogers in outer space. They were all puppets in a global scheme to destroy America. Don't be stupid, look into this matter because you will be an accomplice if you vote for these people after hearing this. Our representatives in Congress have repeatedly warned us that the CIA is involved with illegal drug trafficking into America. There is much spiritual wickedness in high places, including the CIA's opium drug business in Afghanistan. Afghanistan produces 90% of the world's heroin supply, $500 billion worth. They control the U.S. military, exploiting our children in the military as heroin farmers in Afghanistan. Russia complained to NATO in 2010, calling for the destruction of Afghans' opium crops because of the 70,000 Russians dying every year from heroin addiction. NATO said no way. The evil is massive. The stench reaches into the heavens, and you had better believe God sees what's going on. Ecclesiastes 5:8. If thou seest the oppression of the poor, and violent perverting of judgment and justice in a province, marvel not at the matter, for he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they.